Hello guys, what's up? My name is Haris and I support people in living a life that is in alignment with their higher self and with their soul's purpose. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about the ego effect or how to resolve the ego. And I'm sure that most of you who are watching this have been dealing with the ego and perhaps fighting it or just trying to figure out a way to deal with it. So in this video, I'm going to clarify what exactly is the ego from my point of view and how to deal with it effectively. Because when we have a clear understanding of what the ego actually is and how to deal with it effectively, then life gets much more easier. We have less struggles when the ego comes up, and we have a greater sense of control over our actions and our responses. So what often happens is that when people talk about the ego, is that they talk about it in a way as if it's something that is separate from themselves. So for example, people would say, well, oh, that was my ego showing up, or in this moment that I was in my ego, or and then there are people who are even talking about an ego death, or it's usually in a context where it's me, where it's them against something else. So in a sense, in the context of there is a me and there is a separate something, whatever it is, like the ego, that I have to that's not entirely me, that I have to find a way to go against or to stay out of its wrath. And so, even though there's some truth to it, because when we talk about the true self or the purified self or the higher, not the higher self, but the purified self, then we're talking about, um, then we're, then we're talking about being really conscious, and the ego is the part of us that is unconscious. However, when we speak from it in the context of an ego as in an intelligence or an entity that is separate from us, we give away our responsibility on how to deal with it. We give away our power because when there is something else seemingly separate from us, we can't control it because we cannot control the things that are happening outside of us. So when we acknowledge that the ego, whether we want to or not, is also us, it's a part of us, then we gain back our power, we gain back our control and our sense of how to respond to it. And I know that maybe some people don't like to hear it. It sounds maybe a bit off because it doesn't, on some level, it doesn't really feel like that's the true, authentic us. Um, Yet here we are in this human experiences exactly for the purpose of clarifying and realigning who we choose to be. And without the ego, we wouldn't be able to do it. So so instead of seeing the ego as something evil, as something that we should fight against, or even try to eradicate completely, which is not possible, we can see it as a friend. It's actually part of our guidance system. Because when we look at it, how would we know when something that we are doing or believing or perceiving is out of alignment? If there wouldn't be for the ego to show us, we wouldn't know when we are being out of alignment with our true authentic self. And we definitely want to do this, especially if we choose to expand consciously and grow and integrate more of our what we choose to perceive as our true self. So therefore, we really need the ego, and it's actually our friend. So, and I have personally found myself often also in situations where I'm triggered by, for example, what someone does, and then I would respond in a way that is like irritated or agitated or just not so kind, and I would feel bad afterwards. I would be like, oh damn, that's not how I wanted to respond, that's not how I meant it. um, and I know that I can respond differently, and mostly I do. But here I am. For some reason, there's this impulse that at some moments it seems like I don't have control over it. It just happens. And so what I do is, whereas before I would be like, oh no, that's the ego, and what to do, and is it still there? Is the ego not still there? How strong is the ego? It was really hard. It was really challenging to to be conscious about my responses. And so what I then changed is, first of all, my perception to the ego. I see it as my friend, and I acknowledge that also the ego is me. It is me. There's just one me, just like there is just one you, with all our different facets and and different ways of consciousness that we explore ourselves through. And ego is one part of that. So so that's one thing, like owning it, taking ownership over that response, over that impulse, like that is also me. And secondly, being kind, being gentle with ourselves. So instead of going, oh, that was not spiritual enough, or that was weak, or that was unconscious, um, rather just be gentle and see that this is all part of the process of expanding, as through the evolution of human spiritual beings that we are. um, because as long as we're going to be expanding it, as far as I know, to be it's going to be um, for a very long time. There will always be contrast. There will always be the ego effect, um, which will show us where we are out of alignment, and where we are not, so that we have an opportunity to grow and expand and develop, um, to that what we call our true authentic self, even though we're always ourselves. So yeah, what I challenge you guys is to really stay conscious about your responses and the impulses. And when you notice that there is the ego showing up, um, instead of seeing it as a force that is outside of you or somehow against you or not you, acknowledge and take ownership that it is you. Um, Express your gratitude towards it, for because for it shows you, it shows more of who you really are, and for giving you the opportunity to choose something else, something that feels more of your preference. And I hope this was helpful. um, I'll see you on the next video. In case you're interested to read more about my work and my vision, or if you want to connect with me and talk about how this awareness um, how you can improve, can apply it in your life in a way that helps you dealing with the ego more effectively, then you can go to alignmentcoaching.online. Okay, guys, see you in the next video. Namaste.